Welcome back to another episode of A State of Loud. I'm your host, as always, Mr. Christopher Jefferson in the building. I'm only putting Mr. on it because I'm wearing a suit and tie today. Put a little bit of respect on my name. And as always, we got my boy Ajax over in the corner, Beastie Boying it up all day. AJ, how you doing, man? Welcome back to the show.
I'm doing good, man. Hey, another show, another whatever. I don't know what they say, man.
Me neither. We're going to have to invent something. I like it. Well, another show, another adventure.
There we go, man.
Right?
Always something new.
Always something new. And then speaking of something new, our guest today, I'm super excited to have on the show. When I tell you, I've been excited about having him on this podcast probably since we started. Yeah. He's a man of many talents and avenues, and being in this community and mentoring youth is one of them that I'm proudly to say I've witnessed. He is the co-founder of Build More Unity. He is the program director of Kismet of Kings, and he's a youth mentor with the Connected Vine. He's also just out in the community and coming to a place near you. Mr. Nevin Perkins, welcome to the show.
Peace, bro.
Welcome.
Thank y'all for having me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, bro. It's so good to have you here.
Thank
it's
you.
so good to have
it's
you
good
here.
To be here.
Yes, sir. As my dad said, it's good to be seen.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
I'm telling you, man.
I feel seen with all these lights.
literally. People have no clue what it takes to make it look like this. They're just like, oh, that looks good.
No
Can
idea.
you do that for me? And I'm like, yo, that's a whole build out.
Right.
So, but it's I know I'm proud of it. I'm glad you enjoy being here. Glad AJ's over here doing whatever he's doing. It's been a long time coming, man. But I appreciate you coming here, man. So I'm gonna start the show off. Always gonna ask you. You have your hands in a lot of work, especially when it comes to youth and building up communities throughout Jersey City, specifically the Greenville area. Ever since I've known you and known about your organization, you guys are very much about putting boots to grounds, getting your hands dirty, and doing the work, which is not said about many organizations that are looking to do the work, right? What do you got going on right now in Jersey City and with its ever-changing atmosphere? Like, what are some of the avenues you're working on right now?
What are we building on?
Yes, sir.
Like you said, I'm a co-founder of an organization called Build More Unity. It's a Pan-African organization, Pan meaning all African. So we serve black people primarily, but all colonized people we're looking to build with and build power with. And power is essential in that, right? Like we say all power to the people, and we mean that. That's not just a slogan. That's an embodiment and a way of life. So one manifestation of that is the decolonization programs that we're working on building. One we have is our survival distribution, which takes place every Saturday in front of the Bethune Center, like you say, in Greenville, heart of the South Side. We serve the people with warm meals, clothes, water, hygienic resources, safety resources, and we also do needs assessments. So if the needs are greater than what we have the capacity for in that hour, we'll take those needs and then come back with them, inshallah, the next week. And the multifaceted meaning behind that, for one, is that in terms of building power and service of the forward revolution of our community, I can't come to you and talk about Pan-Africanism or, the hush word communism if you're hungry, right? And you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. So we have to, as revolutionaries, we have to have the potential to meet people's basic needs in order to organize them. So, that's one front that we're working on.
Yeah, because you just, I'm saying, just hearing it, that's only one front.
Yeah.
That you're working on, man. Seriously, because I really appreciate you saying, like, how can I talk to you about where we need to be going if I'm not addressing the needs you have about where we are right now? And there's so many ways that we get lost in the journey of building that way, where we don't think to ourselves, let me meet the people where they are, right? Like, and we tend to look at the people that we are motivated from, that we idolize, and they sit in positions that can look completely different from where we are. And their always encouragement is, well, come join me here at the top of this mountain. And you're like, well, bro, I'm at the bottom with no shoes and no jacket and no map and no coat. Like, I want to, but I need to figure this out first. So I definitely appreciate you guys doing that work. Man, amongst the other things that you do, just hearing that first step and that first real front of your journey that you're embarking on it and helping the people, I have to ask, so the people to get a real understanding of where you come from, like, because you speak of Pan-Africanism, you work within the communities in the neighborhood, you meet people where they are. I have to ask, where did this start for you, this journey to get you to this place that allowed you to work in the capacity that you do?
Alhamdulillah, we're going to get heavy early. Let's go.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Please and thank you.
So I'm from Jersey City, born and raised. My entire family. My family's from Duncan Projects. Yeah, so I had an older brother. I actually have him tattooed on my arm, but he passed away in 2016. He was killed, and he was shot right on the corner of Dwight Street and MLK, right where we do our distribution at.
Wow.
Yeah, he died in the hospital a week later. And my dad, who passed away 2 months before I was born, my brother is like the spitting image of him. So he was kind of like a father figure to me growing up. You know?
Yeah.
And we had different career paths. He was in the streets and whatnot, but he was someone who loved fiercely and someone who protected, and he embodied that for me. So when I lost him, it put me in a really vulnerable, emotional place. You know what I mean? I had a lot of rage.
Yeah.
And I had few outlets to disseminate that rage.
Yeah.
So by the grace of God, by the grace of Allah, I was able to go down the revolutionary rabbit hole. And what I mean by that is that before my brother passed, I had a cousin who was killed from gun violence. I had a few friends I had lost. And they always just, like, up until that point, seemed like isolated issues, right? It was like, oh, R.I.P. bro, R.I.P. cuz, like, R.I.P. auntie, you know what I'm saying? But when my brother died, I guess I had so much time to reflect and then to critically analyze the circumstances and situations. Like, okay, for one, this didn't begin when he got shot on the Ave. Like, this began in 4th grade, you know what I'm saying? When you start sitting in the back of the classroom and the teachers start to suspend you because they don't care, and you get that juvenile justice pipeline from school to prison. So it had me go down that route and start analyzing these circumstances in our community, just questioning, right? Like, why?
Yeah.
'Cause oftentimes we'll look at the results of a situation and not necessarily analyze the root. So that's what I started doing. I started analyzing the root, started analyzing the problems and circumstances. And then I started to study people who were looking for solutions to these problems and how they were addressed by the state, by the government, simply because they were fighting for humanity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that really led me to come up to the ultimate resolution that we all have to do, which is understand that, like, hey, this is all by design. Like, you know, African people, black people, we aren't a product of our own laziness, of our own inabilities, of our lack of capabilities. We are being systemically disenfranchised. And, you know, ultimately, once you come to that realization, like Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better. So I got that realization. And then around that time, I read a book that I read when I was 14 as a punishment. And it didn't resonate. I wasn't ready for it.
Okay.
But around this time that my brother passed, I was 21 years old, and I again read the autobiography of Malcolm X. Changed my entire life. So I read it, started watching YouTube speeches of him, and I went from him to learning about the Nation of Islam. I didn't stay there. I went from there to learning about different revolutionary organizations. I started looking up Garvey. I started looking up Pan-Africanism, Du Bois, and I was like, okay, this is the correct path, right? Like, our solutions, our problems aren't individual problems, so our solutions can't be individual solutions. Like, we have to understand our responsibility in our community, and we have to act. And then, so that's the knowledge part. But then something, and I couldn't explain it at the time, but something like enacted in me spiritually where I knew, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna go towards. Yeah. And I didn't have all the answers at first. You know, I started in very isolated charitable acts, started doing work in the community, but I just kept growing my politic and growing my understanding, and then, you know, we got here.
Wow.
For real.
Wow. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. That's our show. We got all the information. Tune in next week. We'll have some more to talk about. And wow.
Now the click off rate gonna be crazy.
No, but seriously, the level of clarity and understanding that you are able to just share within your journey, to have that level of clarity of almost like, I don't want to say this, but like you have such a valued understanding of your path, your journey, and every aspect that was important to you, that when I ask you about it, you don't even have to think. You know your story. You think it, you live it, you learn it, and it's I find that in extremely extraordinary and interesting, because there's very few people that can speak to that way about their life journey. You literally described a major portion of your life and each individual major step you took, including the emotions you felt, without a blink of an eye. And to me, I only believe that can come from being fully aware, fully present of your journey, and even taking the time to step back and reflect on the things that are coming to you. And it sounds like that was the type of journey you were on from day one of just realizing it. Like, how did you get to that level of practice in your journey when you did realize, okay, what's happening to me isn't just happening to me. This is happening everywhere. Where did those behaviors come from? How did you lock into such a manner?
Well, I would first lead with, especially for anybody who's looking at this and is thinking that, wow, I'll never get that discipline. Like, what is he talking about? That
Getting up how early, go gym?
Right.
Like,
you got it, 5 a.m.
God bless you, man.
You gotta arrive at these steps through trial and error, right? So when I first had the realization, my life wasn't an embodiment of where I thought I was going to head, right? So I'm smoking, I'm drinking, I'm 21 at this time. So I'm at war with two natures in myself, with what I'm growing to understand my purpose is, and then what society is telling me what my life should look like. So circumstances and situations begin to arise in my life that made me fail, because at the end of the day, I was trying to lead two different lives. And then the more I tried to lead two different lives, the more I was able to realize that, okay, the straight path, the right path, the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is guiding me on, this is the path that I need to go towards. And then, like, I don't know, to make that simple, man, I just eventually just started going more towards that path just from every trial. I'm like, so every situation that came up, I'm like, okay, this is not what I should be doing. I'm exiting this out.
Yeah.
This is not what I should do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm just moving more towards my path. And that was at 21. It's been 7 years now. I'm 28. And there's been so many situations I've removed from my life, so many undisciplined habits, unfortunately, but fortunately, so many people I've had to remove from my life just to, focus in and understand my path. So I would say that in that circumstance, experience is the best teacher, but you got to have your eyes open, your head up, and your fist clenched. You got to be able to listen to that experience. Because if you just go through it and then you don't take anything from it, you're just going to arrive at the same conclusion every time. You know what I'm saying?
Groundhog's Day.
Right.
Wake up, same thing over and over.
Right.
Sheesh.
Apply it.
Yeah, and that you make a very valid point, right? If you're not able to go through it and listen, then you'll gain nothing from it. And the one of the phrases that you mentioned was like you had this calling, like this purpose. You knew this was for you. And there's a saying where they call it God's whisper, where when you kind of have that inner feeling of to go in a direction and do something, knowing this is for you, they call it God's whisper, but you have to be silent in order to hear it. And we live in a world where it's increasingly hard to be silent. You have cell phones, you have music, the TV's going, there's traffic. There's consistently your attention span is being fought for, and it gives you less time for you to actually be present, be connected to self, and start just listening to see, well, what's calling me, what's guiding me on my path. And it sounds like you tapped into that early. When you realized there were things for you and you weren't, and you went through the trials and tribulations of that path, letting people go and keeping people here. And I can only assume it's not an easy journey going through that and doing it, because you're used to life in a certain way. I definitely want to tap back into what you said. You felt like you were living two different lives. Like, when you felt like you were living two different lives, what were some of the emotions and some of the feelings that you were having on a daily basis kind of just going through your mind, that kind of led you to the point where you're like, nah, this ain't it. I can't do this anymore.
I would say the two biggest feelings of separating myself from my old life and moving towards my new life is grief and shame. Yeah, so shame in my growing understanding of not shame in my growing understanding, but shame in understanding the life that I'm supposed to be living, but still making decisions in my old life. You know what I'm saying? Because now I'm growing consciousness about what my life should be, but I'm still submitting to my lower nature.
Oof.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So it's like, so when you do something bad, right, the closer you get to realizing it in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At first you have the reflection like a month now, like, yo, like that was messed up.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Then you have it 2 weeks. Then you have it a day. Then you have it in that moment, like, yo, what am I doing?
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So just getting closer into that moment of shame in real time, and then also the grief from letting it go. Because you gotta grieve it. You gotta feel through that. You know what I'm saying? You gotta grieve killing off that life. You gotta kill that lower nature in your head, in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. So removing that is grief. Shame and grief, for real.
Wow.
For real, man.
Wow.
That's actually one of the lowest vibrations if we want to get into the Kundalini energy.
Well, yeah. It's two places if you stay in for too long, can really change the trajectory of where you want to go and where you want to be, right? So many people fall into that. I just want to sit here and before I even go into my statement, and I want to make note that I've never heard someone explain it in that way before of such literal timeline of experience. Because that to me is, you just gave me more food for thought to go meditate on later. Because yes, sir. Like,
I gotta watch this back. So hey, I learn
seriously,
something new every time.
I'm waiting for that text. Like, yo, bro, look at the reels.
Yo.
But like, I really like the way you explained it about the practice of becoming more present of your actions, and dealing with the regret of doing it and the shame of doing it, and then the healing of that shame. Realize you shouldn't. Because we, as human beings, can tend to get stuck in that shame, right? And almost tend to identify it, right? Like it almost becomes part of the cycle. Like, if I know I'm going to go out and drink tonight, I'm going to have a hangover tomorrow, but this is what I do, so I'm okay with it. So it's like, I know I'm going to do something I shouldn't, and I know that shame is going to come eventually, but I don't have it right now, so I'm not going to worry about it. And we can completely miss the lesson in it.
Right.
And to be honest with you, it's probably the main reason why so many people are okay doing things in which they know aren't right. Like, because even if, let's give them the benefit out, even if they're having the shame in the moment, we can get to a point where we justify that shame and we lie to ourselves. No, I shouldn't feel bad about this. Well, they were asking for it. They want it. They wouldn't be here. They're an adult. This is fine. I'm an adult. This is fine. Whatever it may be. There's so many ways of trying to avoid that pain, but yet there's so many lessons in it. And I think it's to even put that staple of time of how quickly you can reflect on it, because, and please, I would love your feedback on it, even to probably till this day, if you're doing something that may, unbeknownst to you, may set off a trigger of emotion, you still have that feeling in the moment. The only difference is you're just aware of it in real time. And you still have to make that conscious decision. Okay, yeah, I'm not doing that. That ain't right for me.
Right.
And that's a daily occurrence. Like, you get up at 5 a.m. from the gym, training for everything. There's probably days that you sit in bed and you're like,
This morning,
yeah.
I went to bed at 2 a.m.
Whew.
and woke up at 5. And when I woke up at 5, so my lady, shout out to my lady, she woke me up, and I'm Muslim, so I wasn't about to wake up for suhoor. I have to wake up for suhoor and eat before the sun comes up. And I wasn't about to wake up, and then she was like, "Babe, like, you're not about to wake up for suhoor?" And I'm like, "Nah." So I went back to sleep, and then she woke me up again, and she was like, "Well, here, just drink this water." And I drank the water, and then it just activated me, and I'm like, "Wait, what am I doing? I'm going to the gym right now."
Mm.
Yo,
I just got up and I left.
Wow. There's so much in that story.
So it's like you said perfectly. It's moment to moment. Like part of being a revolutionary is making the revolutionary choice moment to moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Moment to moment.
Wow. Most of us, including myself, would not even connect that experience to even being considered revolutionary. Because getting up, being disciplined. When you look at it, you almost take the romance out of it, like, because it becomes part of your norm. You get up. This is what I do. There's no question about it. But you take out the fact that, okay, I need to give myself credit. I'm overcoming some type of natural instinct that's telling me not to do this. Right. And we talk about that. Many different books. I know Wim Hof talks about it. And when it comes to cold showers, where one person dissected and said, taking a cold shower may or may not have any medical effects on you, but the fact that you can take a cold shower every morning, you're gaining grit and resilience and discipline because you're doing something that you inherently don't want to do every day. And that's how you get stronger. Mike Tyson himself said, being a champion is doing something that you hate and doing it like you love it. And you sharing with your story that you do that every day, just getting up in the morning today, and having a wonderful lady by your side that can be like, hey, I'm here to remind you. I'm here to remind you, hey, it was time to get up. And that's extremely valuable, especially a man in the work that you do, to have that type of support.
Simply put, my brother, we grow through struggle.
Yes, sir.
As people. Without struggle, there is no progress. Frederick Douglass said that. And we got to take that to heart for real. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Yes, sir. So I want to dive a little bit more into the work that you do in the community, because you are extremely well versed in the history of this country and the systems that have been put in place, and the effects that it has on our communities. We talked earlier, and like you said, with certain words, Pan-Africanism, communism, it can bring a stigma behind it. It can often trigger certain emotions in people, which can be along the lines of fear or becoming defensive or any other plethora of emotions. And I feel like, just like anything, we only fear what we don't know. What are some of the things in which you've learned that you feel aren't really a widely known facts about those things that society should know, and will probably take away some of that fear of the unknown for them?
So, well, I want to begin on that topic by helping the people understand that propaganda is very real in the United States, and the United States spends billions, if not trillions of dollars of altering our perception, of shielding us from information, of giving us false information, and preventing us from arriving at the correct analysis, to the point where we hear words like communism because of the Red Scare in the 80s and 90s and the Cold War on Russia and Cuba, and we think, oh, communism is bad, boogeyman, the government's coming to take your house.
Yep.
But in reality, communism is the forward step for humanity. You see, in our issue in the United States, and this isn't our issue as black people because we are victims of this, everyone's an individual. Capitalism is putting us in the space where, okay, I got to get mine. I got to get mine.
Yeah.
I don't care about yours. I got to get mine. And we want to get so full that we don't care that the next person is hungry.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
But if we all was just half full, everybody would be full.
You
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, this world is finite. The resources are finite. Everything that we have is finite. Simply put, we got to share.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You, like, as an individual, you shouldn't want to amass $1 billion. You know what I mean? Like, so this is, and alhamdulillah, this is why Islam is such a spiritual and moral guidance, because we're having this conversation right now in the heart of Ramadan.
Yes, we are.
Where you're supposed to fast to get closer to the Creator, but fasting in a form of appetite is also a mirror for fasting in terms of greed. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you check your limitations on what type of wealth and what type of resources you trying to amass? You know what I mean? Like, how do we work to, and I'm not talking about individuals, I am talking about individuals, but I'm also talking about societal reflections. But how do we remove the ideas of a Bill Gates from the world or a Jeff Bezos from a world, people who amass so many resources, and you don't get those resources without starving people, you know?
Wow.
Like, Jeff isn't rich because of his talents. He's rich because Amazon workers are underpaid. His wealth comes from extracting it from the people.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So at the core, the people have to understand that, power to the people means that the resources of this world, of this land, belong to us, and one person at the top shouldn't be in control. Everybody should be in control. We should all be in self-determination of our own destiny, be it economically, politically, agriculturally. You should be able to have a farm in your backyard, and the government shouldn't be able to say anything about it, and you should be able to feed your block with that farm.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
I do.
That's the core of it, for real, man.
Wow. So I think
Got me yapping in here.
no, but that's what we want, man. That's what we want, man. Because you definitely putting out some heavy knowledge with it, and it just letting it digest for a second for myself. Where the things in which you speak of, it's interesting because when you push and you say we all should be here, this belongs to the people. A lot of people would push into the realm and say, "Oh, now you're socialist. Now now everything should be with everybody, equal everything, and no one should have a competition of it." And yet, it's interesting, right? Because if we all had the freedom to get the things we needed and enjoy the lives we want, would people still be concerned with someone else next to them having more than them? Right? And it does boil down into the hierarchy of value in which we created in this world, right? It's kind of wild because we all can admit the way in which we perceive value, at least the masses do, of this world is by dollar, right? If you're good at something, you're going to make tons of money doing it, right? We do it. The best basketball players get paid the highest contracts. The best musicians get the most sales, at least perceived, right? And it's always the best will earn more. It kind of changes, I guess, in that sense. To me, it almost opens up the possibility of, how can I say this? Not that it possibly opens it up, it does. It creates this thing of perceived value over actual value, right? Because the resources we have, that you said, are finite. We know their value, and that's why I guess people want to control them. Right. Because, like, we need it. This is finite. If I control it, I now have all this value. You need it. This is what I want to charge you for it, right? And the smaller the amount of people that control it, the higher the price tends to go, right? Which is interesting, and it continues to feed that cycle of infinite growth. It's like we're creating something to feed the something we've already created, right? And to me, it's like we sit in a world where we are tending to lean towards things, right? And I'm going to go back to the place where you said you were living two lives. Because out here, if you want to do stuff in the community, you have one area they say, oh, you want to help the community start a nonprofit. The way that nonprofits make money is by grant funding or fundraising. You're not going to make $1 million overnight. And doing this work, you're going to have to start very small and hopefully work your way up to build relationships, right? On the other hand, you get into the for-profit world. It's going to take your time away. And as of now, we don't have many ways to make a large sum of money through helping society. Ironically, right? Because we all know in business, a need, supply, demand created money, right? But we live in a society that still hasn't woken up to that yet. How do you feel people can kind of balance that out? Or do you think that we will eventually find a balance where wealth will be in the creation of peace and the elimination of poverty versus in the creation of perceived wealth as we have it today?
Because that's it right there, right? It's the production in service of humanity versus the production in service of the accumulation of capital.
Yeah.
So that's the question. And how do people arrive at production in service of humanity? First, scarcity has the idea of scarcity has to be eliminated. So resources are finite, right? But the earth also replenishes itself. So there is enough for everybody to be half full, like I said earlier. And the way that society makes us believe that we're rugged individuals and we have to get ours before anybody else gets theirs is homeless people. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, a lot of our driving markers are I don't want to be that.
Yeah. Yeah. Fear.
I don't want to be out on the street.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to not know where my next meal is going to come from.
Yeah.
So I'm going to chase capital so hard to the point where I'll even become immoral just because I don't want to be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then in the midst of that, like, and you know, again, a lot of this is state propaganda and this is conditioning capitalism, which goes back to predates slavery. And understanding that capital gets tied up with morality to think that, okay, if you have accumulated this capital, you are somehow more intelligent, you are somehow have a higher sense of morale, when this is a false sense.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of preconceived notions that we have to remove with communal education. And I say we a lot because it is we.
Yes.
Malcolm X said, when you replace the I with we, even illness becomes wellness. We should sit with that, right? When you replace the I with we, even illness becomes wellness. So the first point to do is we have to get dependent upon each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You have to be dependent upon your neighbor. You got to be dependent upon your block. You got to be dependent upon your community. And not just like in the arbitrary sense of, oh, I'm a give back and I'm gonna support this community temporarily. No, like our livelihoods need to be tied up in each other. You know what I mean? How are we getting our housing? How are we eating? How are we getting clothes on our back? Those needs need to be immersed in each other.
Yeah.
And then our survival becomes inherently connected. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You're no longer the stranger down the block. You're now my neighbor and you're now my brother or you're now my sister.
Yeah, man. You're absolutely right. And the interesting fact is that it's not like this is something that's not known to American culture. We hear many people always say that small businesses are the backbone of our economy. As much as that may not be true right now, I'm just see S&P 500. There's like 3 companies holding us up. So like, just be real on it. God bless them all. Hold on for the ride. So I say that to say, like, we know that small business are the backbone of our economy, and that's where we really had a tremendous amount of wealth, right? Where you didn't have mass-made production food processing plants. You had a butcher down the street that you knew. You didn't have a chain of auto mechanic places. You had the mechanic down the block at the gas station. When we had locally owned and run individual entities, there was a stronger sense of community. You were able to control your community a little bit more, and you invested in it because I'm gonna go to him because I know him. You were able to build relationships.
Right.
People were people. Corporations weren't people.
Right.
Even though the law says that's different. And that really made it a human experience.
Right.
Because and I feel like that's still something we yearn for. I know studies have shown that the current millennial generation, I guess I'm not even going to go into that, but they said the current millennial,
Make them feel old.
right? I was like, I'm leaving it alone. I'm going to leave that one out there. But the current millennial generation looks for more experiences versus just consumption. So it does show that we're going in a way of that. But the interesting thing is, I feel like the rest of the economy still is holding on to old ways. And it's kind of hindering us in what we see today. So I bring that to say is like, so you mentioned like everyone having everything in which they need and building more of a communal environment, being tied to one another. Often when that is spoken of, people are worried. They do gain that fear of, like you said, I don't want to be that. I want to have a big enough cushion that if anything were to happen to me, I won't turn into that. How do you feel we can eliminate that stigma of what the I don't want to turn into that is. How can we eliminate the stigma of homelessness or of just being in a tough financial situation or just living through life where things don't happen to the point where we can change systems and say, well, okay, maybe you didn't do anything wrong. Maybe life just happened. You need a little helping hand, and we're here to do that. How do we kind of move towards that?
So it's a multi-step process, right? One of the first things is education.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, when you know better, you do better. So
Proper education.
right, proper education, right. Proper education always corrects errors.
Yep.
Right. Peace. Right. Right.
Peace indeed.
Right. So when you understand what's at play to prevent people from unifying, to prevent Pan-Africanism from happening, and the definition of Pan-Africanism is the total liberation of all Africans under scientific socialism. It's inherently a socialist project. People then understand that their destinies are tied up in each other. So essentially, like, it's difficult because it's layered, and there's also another aspect to it where it's like, okay, we start to unify, and then here comes the government.
Oh, man, that's an interesting, yeah.
Because, like we're saying, this is systemic, and it's by design, and the reason that people are here is because people want to be here, and those people want to stay there.
Yeah, it's safety, right?
Right. And we're not talking about the people who make $100,000 or the people who make $200,000. Those aren't the enemies that we're talking about. We're talking about the people who have accumulated mass amounts of wealth that statistically you shouldn't be able to do in your lifetime. You know what I'm saying?
The anomalies.
Right, the anomalies. The people who are able to lobby and get laws passed.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? The people who have societal influence, who are able to disseminate thoughts into our brain to make us think that this is where we should go. So we have to have a reorientation of values.
Wow.
Yeah.
Please continue.
We have to have a reorientation of values. And I lean on Islam because Islam teaches this and it practices this. We have to get accustomed to being half full. We don't need our bellies super full to be safe. What are our basic needs? We start there.
Yeah.
And if our basic needs are met, then we're safe. I have access to food. I have water. I have shelter. I have love. I have family.
Yeah.
I have a few laughs a day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
Yeah, serious.
Exactly.
That sounds like a good day to
Exactly.
me. No
What you
stress.
mean?
I ate. I had water. My family's good. I got a house. I got clothes. And I laughed. That's a
probably learned
Saturday.
something, too.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Yep.
Jeez, bro. Did the sun come out?
Right.
Bonus.
Like,
I'm good. That was a great
man.
weekend.
You got
Seriously.
to put your toes on some grass.
Oh, come
Yo,
on now.
you know what I'm
bro,
saying?
the leaves was blowing in the wind. You could smell the outside. Bro.
The magnolias.
Bro.
The dandelion.
Come on.
You know what I'm saying?
Come on,
Bro.
man. Instant gratification.
Bro.
Yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we got, like, these are evils.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There are evils at play right now. You know what I'm saying? It's so easy. Bro, people talk about Amazon like it's a person.
Yeah.
Like
Yo.
the company. Like it's
Yeah.
an individual.
It's a part of their life.
It's a part of their life.
Like that extra person in your household.
right.
Sheesh.
I
Right.
mean, now
Like Alexa.
technically Alexa
I knew you was
works.
going there. I knew you was
You know what
going
I'm
there. I
saying?
knew you was going there. I knew
Because
it.
they taking us there, bro.
Yo.
They taking us there. And then there's this notion that under socialism there won't be any innovation. But that's
See,
not
and
true.
that's
not true, yeah.
that's an super important point. I'm happy you
That's
made.
not true.
Yeah.
Because under capitalism, the only innovation we're seeing is the recreation of things to continue to commodify it. You know what I'm saying? To make it cheaper or to make it more expensive, however the market wants to trend.
So that's super interesting. You like making that
Yo.
point.
Because
Yeah.
what is
First
Siri
off,
but Alexa?
yeah.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And what is and Google is
Right.
the
How
same thing.
often are we gonna recreate the same thing?
Well, that's
and then
where
repackage
market
it?
is in business, right? And it's the interesting part about all of this
My
when
team.
it comes to the economy is the way it works, right? Where in order for a business to grow, it's always good for a business to have competition because you two can work with each other and bring attention to each other's brands. They said Coke wouldn't be as big as it was if it weren't for Pepsi, and Pepsi wouldn't have been as big as it was if it wasn't for Coke. Pepsi was swinging up, fighting out of its weight class, but because Pepsi rivalry was good for Coca-Cola. They both benefited. More people drink more soda. People always go, well, didn't Coke and Pepsi make commercials together? No. They use each other's brands in each other's commercials to make fun of each other. And because they were bringing awareness to each other's brands, they said, let's just keep going. And it makes me interested. It makes me really interested because I said if there are people in place that are able to do these things and quantify activities to grow companies to this magnitude and selling a brand, think about what would happen if we put that level of intuitiveness and education and knowledge and innovation into truly doing things that could benefit the society as a whole.
Remove competition, insert collaboration.
Boom. And what do you think is how thin is that line of collaboration and competition?
I would say it needs to be thick. But then again, it comes back to the root. So to be radical is to grasp things at the root. What is the goal of the business?
There you go.
Because the goal of a business that's selling liquid should be to what? To hydrate people.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Not to kill.
You selling drinks. You should be trying to make sure people not thirsty.
Yeah.
Not trying to make money.
Yeah. And
money should be a secondary thing.
And the ironic thing is, you bring up that point. My first day of business school, when I was in college, the first thing my professor goes, he goes, "All right, you guys are all here for business school. What's the number one driver for any business?" And we're all young college kids. We're out there like to satisfy a customer, to meet a need, to do all this. And he goes, "You're all right. The main number one reason for a business is to make money." He goes, "All those things are byproducts of achieving the goal." He goes, "If a business can make money without addressing a need or satisfying a customer, but still do that."
Oh, that's heavy indoctrination.
Bro, I literally was in class and I went home and I was like, "Mom," I was like, "Do you know what the number
welcome
one
to college, man.
purpose of a business is?" And my mom was like, "What?" And I was like, "Just to make money." But in learning that, I now look at the world and people say, how can these companies do this? How can they put out a product that they know isn't going to be 100% successful? How can they give you a product that they know isn't going to be well for you? How can they sell you something that's not going to benefit your health in the long run? It's because their goal for many companies, even though their marketing shows you different, is not to fill the need. It's to make money. If I can address the need and make money without fully fulfilling that need, and I can save money doing it, I'm going to do it. It's why we get products and then they need revisions. Because if I can sell 1 million units and 100,000 of them I know are going to be defects, then okay, I'm selling them. Because I'm going to make enough money from those 900,000 that the replacements I need for those 100,000 won't matter. And if they sue me, I'll have enough money to let it go long enough, I'll put out a new product. Like, business is a game. And when you start looking at it that way,
iPhone.
Every 2 years.
You can, I'm just saying, you start learning the game, you start understanding what you're playing. How can I say this? It doesn't get interesting until you start learning how you can use needs as a gain to understand where the industries are going. And that's where we sit with everything. Because you say, and I agree with you, the only difference between competition and collaboration is how you view
it's intention.
the coming together, right?
Yeah.
Because even a team in practice is competing against one another to get better for the battle against another team. So we are collaborating with one another by pushing one another. Imagine, like you said, if two companies were like, hey, our goal is to be the best at hydrating people. Let a better man win. Because in reality, if I'm better at hydrating you, I'm going to get more customers. I'm going to fulfill this need. I'm going to get the market share anyway. I don't need to worry about anything else, just doing best at my field. And for a long time, we had marketing of that. But this is where the marketing gets interesting. Marketing made a switch from value, actual value. Our car is made from the best steel Detroit has to offer. Our technology will last you a lifetime. This dryer will be give to your kids. And it changed over into emotional depictions of value. It's why Marlboro cigarettes started showing a cowboy instead of saying our cigarettes are the smoothest and best. No, you want to be like a tough cowboy? Smoke a cigarette. It's why Bud Light has Pitbull
Right.
selling Bud Light. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, I've had a Bud Light. I'm not necessarily saying Pitbull doesn't drink it. I'm just saying he, in that suit, I don't think that's his go-to.
Right.
Like, I've never, I'm
not
just
his
saying
go-to.
it, right? But the perceived value, it's why we put attractive women in commercials. It's why you put these images of heavily masculine men driving such cars, and it's almost like you're being taught what to be and who to be and how to
It's
be it.
intoxicating.
Yeah, and it is. Let's be honest here. When you were a kid, before the knowledge
now
you
it's
had,
amplified
who did
because
you
of
look up
Instagram.
to and say, that's who I want to be like when I go older? Kobe. Want to be just like
Rest in
Kobe.
peace, man.
An athlete.
Ready to ball out the gym. What were your driving factors between wanting to be Kobe?
I thought Kobe was the greatest basketball player in the world.
Mm.
I thought that he had the hardest work ethic, and I thought that everybody else wanted to be like him.
So in that moment, what did wanting to be like Kobe, what was that going to gain you?
In that moment, rich, fame, a ticket out the hood, the house next to Bob.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All of it.
All the things in which we as society are
The
told
women.
to want. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The women.
The fame comes along with all of it.
all of it.
Right?
All of it. And I see all of that as drugs.
Ooh.
Yo,
Dick
come on now.
Gregory said if they were to take out the cigarettes and the alcohol and the pornography and everything else, all of the ills in society, they would have to bring out tanks to control us.
Really?
Yo, come on now.
We all would be walking around like gods.
Wow.
Come on now.
All of these societal ills that we have and this new one that we have, social media.
Social media.
You know what I'm saying? Where you can look at naked women scrolling on your phone. Then you can have a traumatic experience and look at somebody being choked out by police brutality.
All distractions
scrolling down
keep
your
you from
phone.
your higher self.
It's just all of it. It's just warped inside of your body. All of it. Your dopamine levels become unregulated. Now you scrolling on social media. You excuse my language, but you watching booty shaking. Now you got to log off social media and go wank one out, just because you seen that. Now you done been unproductive for 30 minutes.
And we don't even talk about how doing that consistently actually takes the warrior away from you as a man.
Now this is
So we don't even talk
now
about
we're
that.
diving deep here.
Come on now, let's get deep.
But
because-
this is it.
Because this
Let's
is
get deep.
reality of things we're experiencing. I mean, science,
Yeah, man.
because I'm always going to bring it back for the listener that says maybe they're talking emotionally, but science backs everything in what you're discussing, right?
That's a fact.
Let's look at the numbers here. We have a extremely high and elevated amount of youth and just young people experiencing higher levels of emotional distress, whether it be anxiety, depression, et cetera, and an increase in substance use to negate that, right? We're seeing a rise in violence, not just locally, but on a national level. They say things are getting a little bit better and crime is down from what it may need to be. I don't think crime is down. Maybe just change what it looks like. And we're also seeing a lack of focus. I think what gets to me is we all talk about things and may mention them that we're displeased, but we very rarely think it's on a massive scale, right? We work with the youth, and how many people say this generation don't want to do nothing. All they want to just sitting in their room and scroll on their phones, right? How come we're not alarmed by this?
Right.
When you have doctors saying that the average age that a young man is experiencing erectile dysfunction has crept down into the early 20s. My guy, when you in your 20s, that's when you should be feeling you should be going out. It shouldn't even be a thought. It was like, oh, you see that young lady? I gotta look at her shoulder. Let's go. Like now, seriously, bro, her ankle was out, bro. Like I'm feeling it
that's
now.
when we get to the why.
You have
Like why?
an extremely large access to content of an extremely intense amount, releasing intense emotions and feeling, and the mind wants to save itself. It's like, hey, if you're giving me a high voltage of input, man, I got to regulate this down so we don't discombobulate here.
It's too much.
So you're not going to get the full return on this anymore. Now, what is that? And so we're going to adjust. So when you ingest that high level, it's just not, the more you do it, it's just not going to feel as intense. So we don't feel the effects. Now, what does that sound like? You said it in the beginning of the show. Those are all acting like what?
evils,
Mhm.
drugs.
Because that's what happens to those suffering from drug addiction. You're chasing that initial high.
You get less and less high every
and
time.
you begin to further chase it, right? And these are things where you said, if they were eliminated, what would be the effects? We'd walk around as gods. And when I hear you say that, it makes me think to myself of the conversation we had earlier about the journey, your current journey of just completely disconnecting and allowing yourself to breathe spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, and the journey I took. 6 months, nothing, right? Complete isolation to be with myself. And it allows you to feel on a level that unless you've lived without those things, you didn't know was possible. To the point where you enacted in your everyday routine. And don't let me sit here and think I'm some Buddha that's always peaceful and get it, bro.
Yeah, we not
like
romanticizing
no,
nothing.
none of
This is real
that,
life.
bro.
This
This is super
is
difficult.
super
It
real
takes a
life
lot of
now.
discipline, and it only gets better with time. And I have my days. Believe me, I still have my days where like, if I'm stressed, I'll catch myself like, why did I just grab my cell phone? I have no reason. What am I feeling right now? Oh, I'm feeling extremely large amounts of tenseness, right? I'm tense.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
feeling very stressed out right now. Been grinding hard for like 3-4 weeks without a break. Oh, this is a distraction. Let me address my real need. I need to go for a walk. I need to be in nature. I need to eat some clean food. I need to
read.
meditate. I need to have a cold shower. I need to breathe. Thank you.
Yeah.
You caught it in that minute.
And I need
You see
to
how
stop
close you
it.
got to catching it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it takes so much time. And what I think we don't
You gotta be
discuss
so
in that
aware of yourself
matter,
to do that though.
bro, you don't even know. Because even if you're aware of yourself, that's one thing I think a lot of people don't talk about is
The awareness
once
of the
you're
awareness.
aware of yourself and you push yourself to continuously grow, the level of stress and adversity you face grows. So what happens is, I'm strong on this top of this mountain, but you weak on the bottom of this one. So, man, I could grind out and work for this amount of weeks straight, and I'm good, and I don't have burnout, and even if I do, I could keep going.
I smoke an ounce a week.
Yup.
You gotta elevate everything.
I'm pushing everything that helped me get through before even higher. And that's an easy road into falling back in. I say this from experience. I don't say this because I'm sitting here like, I've overcome all that. There's still times I'll catch myself where I'll be working late at night. It could be 2 a.m. And I'll know, hey, I need time to decompress. And I come faced with that situation. Am I going to spend the next hour and a half? It's already 2 a.m. I got to go to bed. The next hour and a half decompressing the slow way, meditation, maybe go for a walk, read a book. I need to calm my whole brain down the stimulation I've been working. Or do I just distract myself? And we have a million ways, right? You could take melatonin to help you go to sleep. Wake up still tired because you were stressed out in your sleep. You could take gummies. You can use different levels of intoxication, whatever you want to do. Some people say, I have a drink every night, whatever it may be. Everyone has a vice, right? And the thing is, let me say this. I will never judge you for enjoying a vice. I believe most things were put on this planet for a purpose of enjoyment, just being aware of what you're using them for, right? Most when you read into most spiritual books, any book of spirituality, you read in many of the plants and things in which we engage in life for recreation had spiritual and sacred use. So if they had spiritual and sacred use and you're abusing them, you're misusing them
Right.
and their effects, in effect that it's going to leave you in a place of being abused itself, right? So I bring that to say, like, I think it's important that we look as to why we're using such things and not just deem them as bad wholeheartedly, right? And I'm diving into this because there's certain things in our culture which if we negate things as just being good and bad, we'll completely cut ourselves off from enjoyment, right? And I think that's where we get stuck. We think life is an on or an off button.
It's not binary.
Thank you.
For sure.
There's no on and off button, right? Like, you talk about everyone having what they need, but I mean, every time I see Mr. Nevin Perkins out, he looking fresh. Now, I never look at you and be like, how can he talk about everyone needs what they need and he's wearing nice clothing? Right? Like, what is he doing? He should be wearing some hemp pants and a shirt made out of organic cotton he got from the shop down the street, right? But I think that's not necessarily what it looks like.
No.
Right? Because it negates the art in which we create.
Right.
Now, and I got to bring it back, right? Because you said to me, if we got rid of all the distractions, we walk around as gods. Somebody had to make that
Gods and
Nike
goddesses, man.
Yeah. Somebody had to make that iPhone. Somebody had to design the Jordans. Somebody made the BMWs. Somebody created the Mercedes, right? Somebody did all these things of high magnitude of creation. Why not enjoy it? Why not experience it, right? And I've had that battle myself of finding that balance. And for me, I know it was realizing that collecting the thing wasn't the achievement. It was, what does this object do for me in service of my purpose? What am I experiencing in life? Am I enjoying the art someone created? Or am I using this as a means of an indication of my perceived value? Right? Like, and people used to get at me because I was like, yeah, if one day I ever buy a Lamborghini, I'm driving that sucker till the wheels fall off.
Windows down.
Right?
Yo. In the hood, riding slow.
Seriously.
Yo, you see me?
Right?
I'm out here.
And people were like, oh, that's crazy. You want a car like that? You don't really need it. And I started buying into that opposite side. Yeah, you don't need that. That stuff's wrong. Why would you need that? That's gluttony. And I'm like, if you start to look at the art form of what it took to make something like that, you look at it differently. But it's almost disrespectful not to fully use it. Why would you buy a piece of art and just let it sit there? That's like buying a painting and put it in your closet. Nobody's enjoying that painting. That artist didn't necessarily create that so you could just keep it in your closet for a couple of years and cash out on investment. Put that up in your living room. Yeah. You bought that car, use it. You got them Jordans. Yes, they pricey. Go play ball in them. Wear them out. At least wear them someplace. Don't leave them in the blocks in the closet.
And get 30 of them.
Seriously, right?
Consumption of commodities.
So where do you fall into that realm when it comes to enjoying the different avenues in life, but not having it fall into a focus of gluttony?
So I'm somebody who grew up very poor, growing up. And when I first started to touch some money, I unhealthily splurged, right? I cashed out every paycheck I got, and I was broke. But then I got paid again, and then I cashed out again, and got paid, and I cashed out. And I don't see myself as in that place anymore. So there's multiple reasons why I stay fresh. Presentation is key. You know what I'm saying? True. Just on a business aspect, or also on a social aspect, you know what I'm saying? Like, so we're trying to create the society that we want to see, and we have to be conscious of the fact that we're still living in the society that we're in. When I wear this tech, my mentees and my youth, they relate to me.
They relate to
yes, sir.
They connect with me. That's Perkins with the Nike tech on, with the new 4s that just dropped. You know what I'm saying? Or he got my ear. I'm listening to him. You know what I'm saying? So it's social relatability on a personal level. I just like to get fly. You know what I'm saying? Like as pure and as straight down the path that I want to walk. You know, Allah knows that nobody is perfect but Him. We got things that we like. We got things that we want to do, and we got things that we want to enjoy. You know, it becomes the question of whether our consumption is ethical. Whether our creations are ethical, whether our creations are in service of humanity. And you know, honestly, man, I think I do enough for the people. That's Nike tech on. You know what I'm saying?
Nah, you make an extremely good point about that. Like, you in this work, you still have to live.
You have to live. Because what are we fighting for?
Ooh.
Yeah, it ain't a Louis bag though.
Yeah. What happens all of a sudden you get world peace and like, well, we're peaceful, but I can't enjoy any of the stuff that's here on this earth. Man. Right?
Like, once we win, I'm living.
Oh, man, that's such a good point because I think it gets lost in this journey that when you really start to become aware of your surroundings, you feel the need to disconnect from all of it. And it resorts back to that feeling of shame you said. Like, oh no, I was consuming way too much, and this is gluttony, and I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Oh no, I need to get rid of all of it because that'll help me get rid of my shame. And you realize, like, no, that's not the answer. Like, no, because who said it? It is the vices in which we keep from ourselves that if we do not learn to enjoy them at capacity, they will control who we become in the future.
Who said it?
I'm paraphrasing, but I will find out who said it. I don't think I made that one up, but I'm trying to tell you what I'm trying to say is because
you need to do something with that.
Bro, I'm about to. Hey, yo, AJ, write that one down for me. That's gonna be the phrase because
write it
literally,
down. I'm editing. I'll get it later.
Because literally,
clean it up like some soap, man. You know what I'm saying? Ajax.
We often say if something is controlling us, stay away from it completely. But doesn't that resort to more and more guilt? Because you're still going to have the thoughts. You're still going to have the feelings of desire. They're going to be there. They don't go away. You just learn to mask them or focus on something else. And other things you can, like, for instance, right? Like I stopped eating meat. I was like, yo, I'm not gonna eat beef, chicken, no more pork, I'm gonna eat, if I have meat, it'll be fish. So I guess that's what, pescatarian?
Pescatarian. Yeah.
So I was like, I'm gonna go this route, but I'm gonna have mostly vegetarian based meals and none of that stuff, right? So I did it for a while, and eventually, like, I didn't want meat. I was like, yeah, I don't even desire meat anymore. Like, I genuinely, at some days, I'm like, I just want some clean vegetables and some white rice, and like, I'm good. I don't even need a sauce, just maybe some seasoning. I'm happy. But once in a while, I'll go someplace, and this happened to me like 2-3 weeks ago. Me and my girl were getting halal food, and I'm like, yo, that lamb looks so good.
I want it.
And she's like, you don't even eat this anymore. I was like, I don't, but I want it today. And I didn't change my eating habits because, like, health reasons. I can eat whatever I want, but I was like, just the life I live, this makes me feel better. In that moment, I was like, yo, yeah, I'm fine. I'm gonna get this. Yo, let me get that lamb shawarma, bro.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And that's one of the things in which we have to learn that consumption is okay. Like, no way in shape or form is any of these practices and process telling you not to enjoy. Like, but that goes back to the main purpose of what you were saying about Pan-Africanism and just boiling down to society as a whole, is being able to make the decisions of living the life you want to live. The freedom to do so without anyone coming in and telling you can't. Just being able to have the freedom of saying, I want to eat this. Cool, you can. You're good. I'm going to stop you.
And then, again, it's ethical consumption. So what you were saying of purchasing a creation, right, and utilizing it, like not hoarding the Jordans and using them as a status symbol, like actually throwing them on and rocking them, getting them creased up and wearing them.
Yeah. Some people are really cringing at that statement right now.
Right. Like, wear your J's. They gonna come out again because, capitalism, everything is commodified. They're gonna repackage it and bring it back to you. So you're gonna see them again in a couple years. You know what I'm saying? We done seen all the Jordans already. We just getting different colors. But I look at the practices of indigenous people historically in terms of how they eat. You take an animal, you take an ox, you don't just eat the tail. You utilize the entire animal. You utilize the fur. You utilize every organ. And on some level, it's respect to the animal, right? Like, no, I'm not just going to kill you and then say, oh, I killed you because I wanted that thigh, and I'm going to just eat that thigh, and I'm going to throw away the rest of your carcass. Nah, I'm going to fully utilize this resource. I'm going to even pray over it. I'm going to be grateful that Allah put this resource in my possession, and I'm going to fully utilize it. So it's ethical consumption.
Yes. Oh, my goodness, man. That boils down to it because it literally boils down to, in order to fully enjoy life, you have to fully engage with the things in which you have in front of you. Like fully use them to their highest and fullest potential. I think Kanye West said it's okay to be used. That's good. You don't want to be useless. There's no value to you. Be used, just don't be misused. And I think we tend not to think about that when it comes to things due to the fear you discussed, the fear of going without, and letting that control our decisions of how we consume things and how we use things, and how that fear of going without has created so many industries, right? So many places, and it's a crazy combination between your self-worth is based on the material items you possess, and then the fear of lacking something. So if by having something you're valued, and you're afraid of not having it, you're willing to pay a higher amount just to get something and then not use it in scarcity of losing it.
Which is why a steak can cost $400.
A pair of shorts could be $100.
Right.
A pair of sneakers, $300-$400.
Right.
I'm still looking at the Jordan 11s, the black and red joints. $500 on StockX.
The breads.
In the cart. Red or press the button, still can't do it.
Right, because what? Because people going to pay that partially to say that, okay, I can pay that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because me getting those sneakers is not necessarily a purpose of saying I can pay that. My desire for those sneakers, and this is going to be a super unpopular statement, so, be mad at me if you want in the comments. That's literally the only pair of Jordans I've really ever liked. I'm a black Vans man all day in and day out. They're multifunction. They get the job done. They look good with everything.
They do.
So when I sit there and people are like, yo, check these J's, I'm like, those are nice. Those are nice. But they like, Chris, how come you ain't rocking none? There's only one pair I want. And I'd be that guy that would like, if I have these, I'm wearing these.
Right.
It's Saturday and it's a sunny day. Oh, come on. Where we going? Oh, it's a baby shower? Let's go. It's a birthday party? We going out to dinner? Yo, it would be a whole movement, but it would be because, like, these are the only ones I want, and I'm willing to go after it, and it puts that struggle of, is it worth to pay it? But that's where the interesting thing I've learned about life and money and consumption is. The minute that you have some type of emotional attachment to the experience of having something, the cost of it goes out the window. Like, there's people that are like, yo, we went on a crazy vacation. Me and my girl cost $5,000. People are like, yo, how can you spend $5,000 on vacation, bro? That's crazy. But that experience in which they had is going to be way more valuable than the money that they gained.
Right. And we also got to be clear and understanding that in this society that we live in, there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. You know what I mean? At any point in time, we could trace the commodities that we're interacting with, and at some point, we'll find some type of exploitation down the pipe hole.
Very true.
Dole Bananas, PlayStation.
Oh, yeah.
Microsoft.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At some point, the consumption in some line of the production was unethical. So, again, a reorientation of values. Under socialism, people are going to have less, and that should be okay. There are going to be limitations on how much wealth you can amass, and that should be okay. And that's not the government controlling you. That's just regulation to make sure that we all have an equal amount. What's wrong with having an equal amount?
And who said that equal amount has to be of lower value?
Right.
Like, why don't we make it a norm that, everybody's driving Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Benz, and Bentleys? Like, how sick would it be that you go outside and you're like, oh, yo, look at so-and-so. He just pulled up in that new Ferrari. That's crazy. Yeah, man. Hop back in the Lambo. We're going to get some groceries. Like, at what point, instead of adjusting and saying that we all need to be down here, crazy idea.
We could all be
Why don't we all be up
We
here?
can all be up.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Why don't, instead of saying affordable housing, why don't we just make housing, and it's not luxury or affordable, but it's just housing, and it's all just super quality.
Right. It doesn't have to cost $2 million to drive in a Ferrari.
No, you wouldn't have to charge that money for that item if you didn't have to pay the people more money to make it, so that they could then afford to buy the items in which you're making. It's a vicious circle, right?
Yep.
But this is where, how do you convince people of that? Right? How do you, and this is where I've gotten to this point of, it goes into the vicious cycle, right, of perceived value. Why is my value based on something outside of my person and who I am? The minute if we and I'm not saying that's the answer, but the minute that our perceived value goes into our contribution to society instead of the items in which we consume, who we are as people would be different. Then you would actually have people walking around in the city of gods, because you'd be like, that's crazy. He created that. He did that. He was the best at that. He was able to create that. It's almost as if that competition that we swear we need to push the envelope of society would naturally form, because people would be doing more of what they love at a higher capacity, have more time to focus on it. There would be more Kobe's. There would be more LeBrons.
Naturally.
Oh, my God. There would be more discoveries throughout our society once we can literally get to the point where we say, hey, instead of us, competing as a place of I have to be better than you, why don't we compete and say who can reach this goal first?
Right.
You're not worse off, and I'm no better. I got here first, but I can say the reason I got here is because I was racing you and you pushed me. And this person can say, well, I wouldn't have got this far as if I didn't see you nudging ahead of me.
But I hate you because you beat me.
Right. But that almost takes a completely relearning of society, because we still, it's interesting, right? Because we look at our society, and a man's value is usually on what he can offer, right? I ain't messing with him. He don't got a job. I ain't messing with him. He don't make enough money for me. Is he nice? Does he respect you? Is he intelligent? Is he creative? Is he be a good father? Is he a good provider? Do you feel safe around him? Now he makes enough money, he can pay people to do those things for me.
There's the binary again. Men are nurturers.
Mm.
Women are providers.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's not a binary. We live in a society of imposed binaries.
Simplicity.
Right.
Everything in which we do in a society is that way, right? The labeling, male and female. But yet you go in nature, and nature is like, oh, wait, we don't have enough females here to keep our species going. All right, guys, I'm changing. Let's get this bill going, right? Let's get this our species continue going. And no one is sitting there making fun of those frogs for changing their sexual orientation. And even the word sexual orientation comes from a system we make to make it simplified to understand what's going on.
Right.
Jeez. So it's just baked into the system.
It was one thing I wanted to touch on.
Please.
Because we've been all over the sun, 360 degrees. Wow. The athlete thing, the entertainer thing, the grandiose, the imagery, the Kobe Bryant being my role model as a child, the reorientation of values. We need to value the healers, the doctors, the educators. Yeah, and not saying that, again, that we're pitting these people against each other, but in this society that we live in, we value entertainment as if it's the most core foundation of what we need to have a nation. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like, doctors should be valued more than basketball players. Teachers should be valued more than movie stars. You know what I'm saying? Why is a movie star able to make $500 million, but a teacher is struggling on a $60,000 salary? And again, it's not necessarily about the wealth; it's about what we're valuing.
Wow. So how do we get off of valuing these things that drive us forward?
Again, it's us tying up our survival within each other. You know what I mean? Like, part of the revolutionaries' work is to get people to understand this, and then it's to get people to get active in their community. Go out and talk to people. We have all these preconceived notions about homeless people because nobody ever actually talks to somebody who doesn't live in a house. We just have all these thoughts about them, and we don't want to get next to them. Yeah. In the community, when we serve the people, we serve at least 30 to 50 homeless people every Saturday, to the point where we're entrenched in these people's lives, where I see them outside of that collective and I build with them and I talk to them. and I hugged them.
Yeah.
And I want to be real about that because you got people out here that be like, "Oh, I ain't touching them."
Yeah.
What you mean?
Yeah.
Like we human.
Yeah, that's
like,
a human.
That's another human
insidious
being.
That
does
was
sound?
someone's child.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the reorientation of values have to get that deep on a foundational level. Like we got to discover our humanity.
Yeah.
That's the first part. We got to discover our humanity. Once we discover our humanity, then we're able to fully recognize the roots of the problems. Then when we fully recognize the roots of the problems, we can recognize the perpetrators. Then we can get organized to assess what resources we have, what resources we need, who is in control of our resources, and ultimately, hush, hush, how are we going to take those resources? You know what I'm saying? How are we going to take the power back? How are we going to move away from political for a second? Well, this whole conversation is political. Water is political. How are we going to move away from the duopoly of Republican and Democrat and understand that the corporations actually control the politicians? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do we give the government back to the people? That's what socialism is trying to do. It's not a boogeyman government. It just means that the people actually run the government. Like, they're giving us a facade as if we vote for somebody and then that elected official is accountable to us, but we have no way to hold anybody accountable. Joe Biden literally said he was going to cancel student loan debt and then was just like, all right, I got in here. So, all right.
We'll get some of you guys.
Yeah,
Don't
like,
stress
about
about it.
I might drop $50K on a couple people, but like,
I mean, that's absolutely correct about accountability. We often put those in positions of power, making them responsible of holding themselves accountable, in a sense of trust, which is interesting because most of us go to work. We have a boss that will come to us and hold us accountable for doing the things we said we'd do. Who holds those people accountable, right? And usually they say by the time you become a leader, you are a public servant, and therefore the people below you should be the ones holding you accountable as much as you hold them accountable.
It's just not happening.
It's just not happening.
It's just not happening. And you made a great point about being used, and I didn't touch on it, and I wanted to touch on it. We should be used. I consider myself a servant of the people.
Yes, sir.
As a revolutionary organizer, I get used every day. My students use me. People in the community use me, and they should. And I will continue to be used to the day I die. But the relationship in this country is in reversed. We're being used by the people in power. They're pulling our strings. We wake up, we go to work, we go to bed. We wake up, we go to work, we
it's
go to
kind of
bed.
almost. It's almost as if we're in. There's the prison. The walls are there. They're just really wide now, and they look like borders.
And you got a few
States.
more commodities to keep you intoxicated.
Yeah. We hear the houses you can live in.
Right.
Hey,
You can
you ever
pay
heard
more money.
You ever heard the
bigger
saying
houses.
that the border isn't to keep them out, but to lock us in?
It is.
It's an interesting
It
interesting perspective when you think about freedoms and what freedoms you have.
Freedom to do what?
That's a good question. What would you do with if that's a good question to most people. What would you do if you had ultimate freedom? No one could dictate what you would do at the end of the day. No one's going to come and stop you. You can do anything you want with your time. What would most people do?
I mean, me personally, I probably read, work out, see the world, learn new languages.
Yeah. And you're not hurting anybody doing that.
Nah.
It doesn't. That sounds like no gluttony, no massive need to consume, just to learn and to enjoy the essence of being alive and
That's
other
it.
people's experiences of being alive.
Being a social creature.
Yeah,
That's it.
walking the earth and like, well, what do you eat here?
That's it.
What's your music like? Talk to me. What does your language consist of? What are your beliefs?
Right.
Learning from one another.
What is this cultural system? What are your practices?
Yeah.
What religions have you adopted?
And it's interesting to see everyone's interpretation of the purpose and meaning of life and the system we've created. as being an ultimate fine. And it's the funny thing is, most people, you ask them, what would you do if you won a lottery? And they literally would say the same thing. I want to travel, spend time with my family, eat food, make some good memories, and just chill. Not many people are out here looking to do harm to one another, even though we perceive that way. We really are a peaceful group of human beings. It is only until your livelihood is threatened that violence usually is the final answer to anything.
So if I take you and 8 other people and I lock y'all in a room for a week, no lights, no food, no nothing, and I open the door a week later and I throw this case of peanuts in there, y'all gonna eat each other alive for those peanuts.
Oh, yeah. Because now my livelihood is on this.
And that's what we living in. We all eating each other alive for those peanuts.
Yeah.
It remind me of that rat experiment. Yeah, when they locked like a bunch of rats in the cage, and then they tested out like they did like, it was like a sensor on like the thought patterns and how they felt. Yeah. And they was comparing that to like the HUD and how the systems are, you know, how like our living conditions are, or like the trash on the sidewalks.
Well, yeah.
Stuff like that, yeah.
It's starvation.
Starvation,
When
yeah.
Nipsey Hussle, God rest his soul, said it best. When you have no resources, you operate from the perspective of starvation. And then there's nothing you won't do to eat.
That's human nature. Self-preservation.
Right. And we should be self-preserving, but not from the standpoint of self-preservation, but from the standpoint of collaboration and forwarding humanity. You know what I mean? Pan-Africanism is nothing but a preliminary step towards world reunification.
Wow.
It goes from tribalism to nationhood to Pan-Africanism, which is just continental unity. There can be Pan-Arabism, Pan-Asianism, Pan-Latinoism, and then you get communism, which is world reunification.
Wow.
At the end of the day, these borders and we getting deep now, but these borders and titles and national identities, ultimately we have to surrender those because we're all just human, occupying this earth, occupying the same resources. We only speak different languages and look different ways because we're inhabiting different areas of the world.
That's right.
That's all circumstantial.
Yeah.
If we move to Asia and we stay there for 1,000 years,
Oh, we look different. We be talking different. Everything would be completely different.
Right.
Wow. So I think that was beautifully said. Pan-Africanism is, it's not about separating. It's not about harming anyone. It's about the unification. To understand that the end all goal is to unify as a human race. To understand we are all roaming this planet together. We may look different, we may sound different, have different beliefs, eat different food, but like you said, circumstantial to your geographical location.
That's it. It's just Africa's contribution to world reunification. That's all.
Wow. Why do you think we say Pan-Africanism? Why and we talk about Africa and in so many lights. It is the one country that has probably been subjected to some of the highest amount of violence, genocide, and just theft in all ways from those around the world, yet still their answer is unity amongst all. How is that always the answer from a people that seem to have never been receiving that throughout history?
Even in that theft, even in that genocide, even in that slavery, the people still understand that we all we got. You know what I mean? We all we got. Even with the propaganda to make African Americans think that, oh, Africans hate us or we hate them. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people still ultimately understand that we all we got. You take a people who have no resources, and yeah, you do see violence, but also you do see collective unity. You see people having rent parties to get their basic needs.
Yes, sir.
met. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You see your neighbor coming to your door and asking you, can they borrow some sugar? So like you said, the people inherently are a good people. We are literally, like I said earlier, at war with our lower nature. and then the society is literally exacerbating it. You know what I'm saying?
Sheesh. So it's
Amen.
wow.
Say, man.
Whew. It's talking about it and sitting here with you. It all seems so simple, right? To me, I've had tons of thoughts on this, and the belief like we live in a system that only benefits some and not all. And I'm a firm believer that, and maybe this is me being naive, but I'm a firm believer that we don't necessarily have to change the system that's currently in place if it's working for some. We just need to build a system beside it to ensure that the addition to that system is taking care of those who are not benefited by that system. Do you think that's something that can be obtained where we can build in addition to what we have to reach those goals, or do you think we kind of just have to start anew?
We have to completely uproot this system, dismantle it, and build a new world. And the reason that I'm so clear on that is because we've been talking around it, but the powers that be have built systems and infrastructures to protect their values and their systems and their goals and their objectives. And they're not willing to just give that up. You know what I mean? When people were, so I'm going to be real candid because I understand that as a revolutionary, I've given my life to the people and I fear nothing but Allah. I was visited by the FBI in 2021 for my organizing activities with Build More Unity. And I'm highlighting that on this podcast to be candid with the people and say that if you're fighting for humanity, you're an enemy of the state. So the state isn't going to allow you to build these systems for humanity. Like Martin Luther King was assassinated. Malcolm X was assassinated. Marcus Garvey was deported. Angela Davis was put in jail. Assata Shakur is still in Cuba to this day on political exile. You know what I mean? We have revolutionaries that have spent decades in jail. So we can want to build for humanity and have love in our hearts, but we also need discipline and security and protection and systems and infrastructure. Like I said, the enemy has built systems in place to protect their interests. What systems are we willing to build to protect ours?
Wow. That is a good question, man. That is a seriously good question. Seriously good question. I think that's a perfect place for us to bring it back to in the next episode.
Sit with that.
Yeah, I want you guys. I usually never look in the camera and send dialogue at the end. I usually just let you send it off. But yeah, today was different. Today was different. We talked on a lot of topics that really hit home and heavy. And it's, as someone working in the community, you lead with seeing the best in people because you believe in their growth. And you want to see that amongst all of us. And the thing that I appreciated, like, you didn't point out any names. You didn't point out any races. You didn't point out any geographical locations of people. You simply pointed out the systems that are in place. Because, and it means you understand these systems were built by people that are no longer alive. These are things in which we trusted and followed due to the fact that we were told this is the best for us.
That's it.
And that's a real thing, because if a system is in place and it's benefiting you, it's going to be very difficult to say maybe we should dismantle it. Because then it goes back into that position of fear of loss and going without and saying, okay, I know this isn't working for everyone, but at least it's working for me. And then I can be okay with that because at least I don't have to worry about myself or my family or them being affected now or for generations to come. But in a sense, you're robbing other people from having that same exact experience because of your fear of either working hard to maintain what you have. Teaching and growing along with the changes to continue being on top as you should be. But instead, you'd rather just say, hey, no, let's just keep them from even getting up here. Heavy stuff, man.
And then we wonder why the character on Monopoly is, overweight.
Yeah.
That's like I was saying earlier about fasting and the appetite being a reflection of fasting from greed. That's a visual representation of greed. Mm-hmm. That game is a visual representation of greed. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
We got to be comfortable with being half full, and that's the last thing I'm gonna say on that. We got to be comfortable with being half full. If I'm half full, the next person is half full. If I need to be gluttonized and I need to overconsume, then this person is gonna be hungry.
Yeah.
And I can't live with that.
It's just an interesting point. Because most people don't really realize they were full. They were already filled half a plate ago. But if you're used to eating the whole plate, you don't realize that you really didn't need it. You were already filled. That half I had, I could have gave away because I was good. But I kept eating because it was in front of me. Whew.
No discipline.
No discipline. Sheesh, man. So we're first off, Mr. Nevin Perkins, thank you,
brother,
very much for coming on this show. You gave me a lot to think about.
Crazy.
I know you gave our viewers a lot to think about. I know I'm gonna be getting a text from AJ when he's editing this.
Yeah, I gotta edit this. I'm watching this back.
Appreciate you sincerely and dearly for coming on the show, for the work that you do, the knowledge that you propose, and that you present, and the peace in which you propose to our society. I think just to say, if anyone is out there is curious or felt triggered by any of the things we said that were said tonight or brought fear into you, go do your research. Go look up the things that were being said. Go learn about them and realize that none of these things were said is pointing and putting the blame upon one person or one group of people, but putting it onto the systems in which our infrastructure is based on. So
we all pay the same taxes.
If you are feeling upset and angry about that, and it does bring fear into you in any way, kind of ask where you sit on that playing field, and see if you can relate to anyone's side of the table. So, Mr. Nevin Perkins, my guy, I'm going to take your time. Your camera's right over there. Let the people know what you got going on, how they can follow you, get involved, or just let them know anything you want to say.
Which side are you on? Oh, man. All praises due to Allah. Peace. Nev, Jersey City, build more unity. Tap in, Pan-African organization. Or you can follow us on social media if that's what you do. But if you want to see us, we outside Saturdays in front of the Bethune Center from around 1 to 3, serving the people. We approachable. You could come connect with us. We hold political education programs, cultural engagement programs, whatever needs the community needs, we try to service them. All power to the people. Build more unity on all fronts. Kismet of Kings, program director there, but that's a fancy title to say that the youth use me, right? And I serve them in that capacity. So we on Monticello Ave, Midtown in Jersey City. If you want to tap in with us, get with us there. I'm also a mentor with the Connected Vine, which is a youth-based organization that serves youth in Jersey City for nearly a decade now. And if you want to tap in with us there, if you have a youth that could use mentoring services, tap in with the Connected Vine. And I'll say that I'm wearing all these hats because oftentimes people will adopt the revolutionary politics and not put them into practice. And as a revolutionary, you can't just amass all of this knowledge and say, okay, the world isn't ready for it, I'm going to go stand on the outskirts. No, you have to go be and live amongst the people. You have to be in the soil. Members of the Black Panther Party in the 60s were revolutionary, but they were also working at the clinics and working at the doctor's offices and working at the social service programs because you have to be where the people are. How else can you make the correct analysis if you're not amongst the people? Go live and be amongst the people. Go touch grass and talk to your neighbor. Thank you, yo. Thank y'all, man.
Absolutely.
This was liberating.
Thank you.
Absolutely,
Thank you
man.
very much as well. AJ, we're gonna send him out on this one. So,
man.
ladies and gentlemen, if you made this far to the show, you know what we always ask, man. Like, subscribe, and share our
comment, all
episodes
that-
with
all
people
that good
around you. This is why we do it, man, to give a platform for the people out here doing the work, for the people, so to speak. So, if you like what you saw, please like, subscribe, share with your friends and family.
Stay loud, man.
It is nothing but love here, and I hope that's what you were able to take away from this entire episode. Like always, peace.
Peace. Peace. Peace. Peace and Pan-Africanism.
Mm-hmm.